It's not a question of if, but of when. Official data from the main European institutions trace an unmistakable trajectory. Several national pension systems are on an unsustainable path. This is not a matter of opinion, but of arithmetic. In this video, based on official data, we will reveal the ranking of the 10 European countries whose pension systems risk collapsing sooner than you think. But the most important part of the video will surely be the end, because we will disclose the 3 hidden mechanisms, the red threads that connect every single nation, and reveal the true heart of the problem, the thing that, sadly, no politician has the courage to say. Welcome to Amazing Europe. Number 10. Germany. In 2024, a quarter of the German federal budget, €117.9 billion, was used to cover the pension shortfall. The Bundesbank forecasts €133 billion by the end of 2025. This is not a future crisis. It is today's emergency, masked by a veneer of stability. The heart of the problem is demographic collapse. By 2036, accounting for new retirees and workers entering the labour market, Germany will have 7 million fewer employed people, nearly 9% of the workforce. Today, every 100 workers support 35 pensioners. By 2050, that figure will be 55. Faced with this mathematical certainty, the political response has been more symbolic than substantive. Instead of structural reforms, the government has proposed a €10 per month scheme for children, in the hope that in 50 years it will become a meaningful sum. A measure labelled dangerous by the IG Metal Union because it distracts from the real urgency. At the same time, pension stabilisation has been enshrined in law, preventing benefits from falling below 48% of the average wage until 2031. That is good news for current pensioners, but we must also acknowledge that the system, as currently designed, can no longer afford to sustain this level of benefits. In fact, to cover the shortfall, the only remaining lever is to raise contributions, which today stand at 18.6% of gross salary. Government projections are relentless. To maintain the 48% threshold, the contribution rate will reach 22.3% by 2035. An increase of almost 4 percentage points that will be taken directly from young workers' paychecks, who will be called on to finance promises made to previous generations. Number 9. Poland. On the surface, Poland looks like a European success story. A growing economy and public debt under control, around 60% of GDP. But this stability is illusory, built on demographic foundations that are crumbling. While Europe is slowly raising the retirement age, Poland made an unthinkable choice in 2017. It reduced it to 60 for women and 65 for men. A vote-driven decision to win immediate support, whose inevitable consequences are now emerging clearly. The data in the European Commission's Ageing report are alarming. The old age dependency ratio is set to explode. From the current 32 pensioners for every 100 workers, it will rise to 63 by 2050, almost double. But it gets worse. Every citizen used to have 2 pension accounts, one state account based on future promises, and one private account with real savings invested. In 2014, as part of a financial cosmetic operation intended to avoid EU sanctions, the state emptied a huge portion of the private accounts, amounting to 150 billion zlotys. Those tangible savings were converted into mere promises of future payments within the public system, permanently losing their growth potential. It's like trading the gold in a safe for an IOU written on paper. The result of this double betrayal is confirmed by a devastating figure, the replacement rate, which is the percentage of the last salary that will become a pension. According to OECD projections, a young person who starts working in Poland today will receive just 25%. Concretely, with a final salary of €2,000, the pension will be only €500 per month. Poland's economic miracle is turning into a pension nightmare. Number 8. Finland. What happens when an almost perfect pension system collides with imperfect demographics? Welcome to Finland, the Nordic paradox. Consistently ranked among the best in the world, its model, with enormous reserve funds and a retirement age linked to life expectancy, seems bomb-proof, and yet it's on our list. Why? Because no amount of good management can win a war against arithmetic. Finland is not facing a future crisis, it is living it now. In 2023, only 43,300 babies were born, the lowest number on record. In the same year, as many as 57,600 people started receiving a new pension for old age, seniority, or disability. This gives us a shocking statistic. For every 100 new pensioners the system must support, only 75 future workers are born. That's a 25% birth deficit at the outset, which no good management can fill. This collapse in births projects the old age dependency ratio, now 37.8%, to a catastrophic 63% by 2050. To survive, the system relies on a quiet, automatic cut. A life expectancy coefficient reduces the value of new pensions as people live longer. It's a cut that requires no political courage, a slow and invisible erosion of promises. A young person today, contributing the same amount, will receive a proportionally lower pension. The system preserves itself by sacrificing future living standards, while the demographic winter drags down growth. Finland is the canary in Europe's coal mine, proof that even the top student is running out of oxygen. Number 7. Belgium. Belgium is not at risk of collapse because of tomorrow's pensions, but because of yesterday's debt. Its pension system is a sick patient forced to face a demographic storm after having already lost its immune defences. Unlike other countries, Belgium has lived for almost 40 years with a chronic illness, public debt that has been almost constantly above 100% of GDP. IMF projections put it at 106% in 2025. This is not an abstract number. It is billions of euros burned each year to pay interest, resources taken away from investment and growth. The Belgian state enters this crisis already financially hamstrung. On top of this vulnerability sits a particularly costly pension system. Unlike nations that, forced by past crises, have already enacted draconian cuts to future pensions, Belgium is watching the problem worsen. The Aging Report 2024 forecasts a devastating increase in pension spending of 3.5 percentage points of GDP by 2070. Faced with this scenario, reforms are paralysed. The last major reform merely introduced a bonus for those who work longer, a bandage on an open wound, and avoided touching the real structural knots. This is the short-term consensus strategy. Give the illusion of action, while actually postponing the collapse. Trapped between crushing debt and rapidly worsening demographics, Belgium has only one lever left: to increase an already sky-high tax burden on labour and thus suffocate future generations. Number 6. Portugal. Our countdown reaches Portugal, the epicentre of Europe's toxic mix, where the continent's worst demographics collide with an economy that struggles to grow. The numbers are a sentence. The Aging Report 2024 predicts that Portugal will have the worst old age dependency ratio in the entire EU, reaching a record 68.8% by 2050. That means there will be just 1.45 workers to support each pensioner. This disaster is not only the result of a low birth rate, but of a true talent hemorrhage. During the sovereign debt crisis, nearly 500,000 people, mostly young and skilled, left the country in search of a better future, permanently weakening the tax base. What was the response? Introducing a sustainability factor that links pension amounts to life expectancy. On paper, a modern reform, similar to Finland's. But in such a devastated demographic context, this tool becomes a programmed guillotine whose sole purpose is to impose brutal cuts. The condemnation is confirmed by the OECD. The replacement rate, the percentage of the final salary received as a pension, will collapse from the current 75% to under 50%. And note, this is not a cut on a rich German wage. It is the halving of a pension calculated on one of the lowest average salaries in Western Europe, condemning a generation to old age with only a few hundred euros. Number 5. Spain. At the start of the 2000s, Spain created a pension reserve fund, a national piggy bank, to set aside the surpluses from the boom years. The aim was to cope with the mass retirement of the baby boomers, That fund reached almost 67 billion euros. Today, it is practically empty, systematically drained during the long crisis to pay current pensions. This choice left the system exposed to two enormous problems. First, public debt has been consistently above 100% of GDP since 2013, with rare exceptions. Second, demographics are devastating, with the old age dependency ratio set to explode from 31 pensioners per 100 workers today to 59 by 2050. Politics faced a crossroads. On one side, the sustainability factor, an automatic mechanism linking pensions to life expectancy, which would slightly reduce benefits for everyone if people live longer. On paper, it would have balanced the accounts, but it would also have meant progressively lower pensions for future generations. On the other side was abolishing that factor to protect the purchasing power of pensions from demographic erosion. The second path was chosen, but the decision created a budget hole that had to be filled. The solution? The intergenerational equity mechanism. Behind the grand name, the reality is simple: a permanent increase in contributions paid by workers and businesses. In practice, a mechanism for future benefit reductions was replaced by an immediate and certain rise in costs for today's workers. A redistribution that protects current pensioners while shifting the burden onto the shoulders of the new generations. Number 4. France. In France, the pension system is not a mere budget item. It is the pillar of the national social model. Its symbol has long been one of the lowest retirement ages in Europe, a right passionately defended by millions. But this model, born in a different demographic era, now comes with an unsustainable bill. The numbers show the scale of the challenge. With pension spending close to 15% of GDP, among the highest in Europe, and public debt projected at 113%, the system is under enormous pressure. Demographically, the old age dependency ratio will rise from the current 35% to 57% by 2050. Faced with this trajectory, the government introduced the highly contested reform that raises the retirement age from 62 to 64, presented by the President as vital for the survival of the system. Yet, the most worrying part emerges from official reports. The Pensions Advisory Council ruled out an immediate collapse, but certified a growing and structural deficit. In simple terms, the system loses money every year and the hemorrhage will steadily worsen. This is not a temporary crisis, but a chronic condition. Macron's reform, therefore, is not a solution, but an attempt to slow the decline, buying a few years before the system becomes financially unsustainable. The reaction was one of the largest protest waves in recent history, with millions in the streets and a deeply divided nation. This stalemate did not go unnoticed. First Fitch, then Standard & Poor's downgraded French debt, explicitly citing the political deadlock as a risk to future stability. The signal is clear: financial markets doubt France's ability to sustain its generous social model. Number 3. Austria. There is a country in the heart of Europe whose image of prosperity hides a shocking truth. Each year, the most authoritative global study of pension systems, the Mercer CFA Institute, ranks it among the least sustainable in Europe. How is this possible, given that public debt remains below GDP? The answer reveals a hidden financial time bomb. Public debt does not alarm so much as mask a deeper problem: a gigantic implicit pension debt, past promises far too generous to be upheld. Already today, pension spending absorbs 11.36% of GDP, but the most worrying figure is invisible. The system does not self-finance. To pay pensions, the government draws 24 billion euros a year from general taxation, almost a quarter of total needs. Resources are siphoned away from healthcare, education, and innovation. The cause is a system stuck in the past. Despite a statutory retirement age of 65, the effective retirement age is among the lowest in the OECD, just 61.6 years. Privileged pathways, such as the corridor pension, and generous arrangements for those with long contribution records are express lanes to early exit. Every attempt to close these costly loopholes meets fierce opposition, prioritising immediate popularity over future sustainability. Meanwhile, demographics worsen. The dependency ratio will rise from the current 30% to 53% by 2050. Austrian wealth does not solve the problem, it only temporarily masks it, enabling unsustainable promises to be financed through general taxation. But the model is structurally compromised and its financial trajectory is already set. Number 2. Greece. In second place in our ranking, we find a nation that has become the symbol of what happens when mathematics is ignored for too long. Greece is not facing a pension crisis. It is living the mathematical consequences of a disaster that has already occurred. Its original sin is an overwhelming public debt, the highest in Europe, equal to 150% of GDP in 2024. A burden that forced the country to undergo more than a dozen externally imposed pension reforms. Paradoxically, these reforms have made the system sustainable on paper. The EU Ageing Report predicts that Greek pension spending as a share of GDP will fall by 2.5 percentage points, the steepest decline in the entire Union. But this is not good news. It is proof of a betrayal written in black and white. Sustainability was bought by legislating meagre future pensions through brutal cuts and raising the retirement age to 67. To this austerity is added a demographic coup de grace. The economic crisis triggered a mass exodus of almost 500,000 young people, draining the country of its future taxpayers. The result is a certified demographic catastrophe. The old age dependency ratio will explode, rising from the current, already very high, 37% to a severe 68% by 2050. At that point, there will be fewer than 1.5 workers for every pensioner. It is ruthless mathematics, a vicious circle in which past debt and the youth exodus have mortgaged the future, jeopardizing the promise of a dignified old age for coming generations. Before revealing number 1 and showing the red threads that connect all these nations, if you found this video informative, we ask you to support our project with a like, to subscribe to the channel, and to click the bell so you don't miss our new videos. And we also remind you of our new channel, America versus Europe, where we compare all the European countries, the United States and Canada across various aspects. Number 1. Italy. Here we are not talking about a system at risk, but about one that mathematically embodies the perfect storm. A country that combines 3 of the worst situations in Europe simultaneously on critical fronts: debt, collapsing demographics, and out-of-control pension spending. The original sin is a monstrous public debt, projected at 137% of GDP. A mountain that burns almost 80 billion euros a year just in interest, resources definitively taken away from the future. On top of this burden sits one of the most expensive pension systems in Europe, with spending absorbing 16.3% of GDP. The system is so unbalanced that to pay pensions, the state draws more than 140 billion euros a year from general taxation. But it is demographics that deliver the coup de grace. Italy is deep in a demographic winter, with births at historic lows. The impact is devastating. The old age dependency ratio, already today the highest in continental Europe at 38.4%, will explode to 66.5% by 2050. Faced with this emergency, the Fornero reform of 2011 changed the rules. It did 2 things. First, it automatically linked the retirement age to increases in life expectancy. Second, it based pensions exclusively on contributions paid over an entire career, no longer on the last salaries. The social impact sparked fierce opposition, pushing subsequent governments to reintroduce loopholes. These are the well-known quota measures, temporary windows to bring forward retirement by adding age and years of contributions. Measures that temporarily eased social tension but further compromised the already fragile sustainability of the system. And here, in this endless seesaw between the rigour imposed by mathematics and the concessions granted in the name of legitimate rights, we see the heart of the problem. In fact, behind the numbers and projections, 3 fundamental mechanisms emerge, 3 red threads that reveal the true nature of this crisis. The first is the broken intergenerational pact. For decades, we built a generous social model based on a simple promise: current generations pay for pensioners in the expectation that future generations will do the same for them. But this pact has been financed increasingly through public debt. Today, that enormous mountain of debt not only threatens the state's ability to keep promised pensions, it also requires rising taxes that strangle the wages of our children and grandchildren, undermining their future before it even begins. The second mechanism is the illusion of perpetual reform. Every government in every country has enacted reforms presented as bold and definitive solutions. But the reality we have documented tells a different story. Timid and insufficient interventions designed to buy a few years and survive the next electoral cycle. They have not cured the disease. They have only postponed the diagnosis, allowing the problem to grow in the shadows until it became today's structural crisis. The third problem is the deepest and most delicate. We know that a pension is a fundamental right, but we must acknowledge an uncomfortable truth: the pay-as-you-go pension model, where today's contributions are used to pay current pensions, is a mechanism designed for a world that no longer exists, a world of steady demographic growth and robust economic expansion. The numbers speak clearly. In Italy, in the early 1950s, life expectancy was 66 years. Today, it is 83. At the same time, the current birth rate is about 1/3 of what it was in the 1950s. The pension model of today was perfect for that context, but inadequate for the present reality. In an era of empty cradles and stagnant growth, insisting on running that system with the old rules is like navigating a storm with an obsolete map. Make no mistake, we are not against pensions. Absolutely not. A pension remains a sacred right. After a lifetime of work and taxes, everyone deserves to rest with dignity. But as we have shown, to guarantee part of today's pensions, young workers are heavily taxed. We face a dramatic situation where ensuring the rights of one group, workers or pensioners, seems inevitably to harm the rights of the other. The problem is not a single law or a specific government. The system itself has reached its mathematical limit. The old pact is broken. What, in your view, are the foundations for a new contract between generations? Let's discuss it in the comments. This video is about the crisis France is going through. We really recommend you watch it to get a more precise and detailed idea of the economic crisis, but also the political and crime-related crisis that this nation and other European countries are experiencing. That's all for this video. See you next time.